Hello, everyone. This is my presentation on communication and building relationships. Why is communication important? The importance of communication and building relationships is that it builds trust and confidence while meeting both the buyer and seller's sales objectives. Communication allows both the buyer and seller to understand better each other's goals and objectives in a sale, and it will enable both the buyer and seller to walk away from the sale satisfied. What is communication? Communication is active transmitting verbal and nonverbal information and understanding this information between the buyer and seller. Our verbal communication is through our words. Our verbal message is essential in communicating. However, many times, nonverbal communication is even more critical. Nonverbal communication is an aspect of communication, such as gestures and facial expressions. These do not involve verbal communication. This is a basic communication model. This represents how we communicate between one another. There are 8 elements in this model. The first element is a source. This is a source of communication. The next is the encoding process. This is a conversion of ideas and concepts into language and materials that are used in a sales presentation. Next is a message, and this is the information that is intended to be conveyed. The medium, that's a form of communication. This is most frequently through words, visuals, and body language. The decoding process is a receiving and translation of the information by the receiver. Receiver, that's the person whom the communication is intended for. Feedback is a reaction to the communication as transmitted to the sender. And noise is the factors that distort communication between the buyer and the seller. Nonverbal communication includes the following: tone of voice, facial expressions, the amount of eye contact we make, gestures, touch, body language, and posture. These are essential factors to take into account while communicating. It's necessary not to enter a territorial space when you're communicating. If this space is violated without a customer's consent, it may create a defense mechanism and a barrier to communicate. There are socially acceptable distances of space that people keep between themselves in a particular situation. Salesperson should know these 4 zones of spaces and take them into account. The 4 spaces are intimate space, personal space, social space, and public space. The intimate space is 2 feet apart. This is the most sensitive zone and is reserved for close friends and loved ones. The next area is the personal space, which is 2 to 4 feet apart. This is the closest zone a stranger or business acquaintance is usually allowed to enter. Next, we have a social space, which is 4 to 6 feet apart. This space is generally used in a sales presentation, so if a buyer and seller are sitting at a desk. Next is a public space, which is 12 feet or more. This is usually the space in a group presentation. Next, we have knowledge and communication. Knowledge is very important in communicating. It's an essential factor in building relationships. First off, it increases a salesperson's self confidence. Knowledge also helps strengthen the buyer's confidence in the salesperson. It helps build relationships through generally caring about the needs of others, and also helps meet the buyer's expectations. What should you have knowledge in? It's essential to know your customers. Um, by knowing your customers, you want to understand their business and you want to understand who they are. Also, it's important to know your own company. This will help build your own self confidence. Knowing your product is very important also. Things you want to know about your product is how much you're selling, actual like characteristics about the product. Another thing you should know is competition in the industry. This will help you just understand who you're competing against and who your customers are likely looking at too. And here's my works cited. Thank you.